Hey there, family. Elder Rodney Martin here, also known as the Preacher's Kid, and welcome to the very next episode of the Dear Preacher's Kid podcast. We are excited to have you joining us today, and on the couch, my sister, the preacher, prayer warrior evangelist. I know, I done started already. Just be an extra, right? I'm so excited to have Evangelist Taryn Fears with us here on the couch today. Today we had her brother Marcel here a couple of episodes ago, and I'm just excited to talk to her. I want to get some perspective, and I got some questions I want to ask. Evangelist, how are you?
I'm good.
Thank
I'm
you.
good.
Sister Taryn. There we go. So I'm going to hop right into it. Now, when your brother was on, we were talking a little bit about growing up, life in the Fears house. Now, you got to understand, Taryn is the only girl with 4 brothers.
Yes.
And so the perspective that Pastor Marcel had on living in their home growing up, I am almost sure is going to be a little bit different for you as the only girl.
We'll
so let's talk about it. Growing up in the Fears house, what was life like?
Life was a lot of fun. I'll tell you that. Life was a lot of fun. The age gap between my eldest brother and me is about 9 years. So they had our first 2 brothers right together.
Okay.
A little break there, and then Maurice, Marcel, and myself.
So you're the youngest?
I'm the youngest.
Jeez.
So I'm the youngest. So
the youngest and the only
I'm
girl.
the youngest and the only girl.
What is that like?
Honestly, growing up, it was nice. I wasn't spoiled. You couldn't be spoiled with 5 kids in your house.
Yeah, well,
it was not a lot of this.
Yeah.
So you had to learn to wait.
Isn't that the truth?
Okay?
Right,
you
right.
had to learn to wait.
Right, it's your turn.
I'm actually a little more spoiled now as an adult with them because they all, they all want to check in.
Yeah.
And what you doing and how you doing and do you need it? Or so as an adult, more so than when I was a kid. But my brothers are super protective.
Of course.
But my best friends, my first best friends, still my best friends.
Yeah.
Always taking care of me, always looking out. And me and Marcel are about 1.5 years apart. So we were like really, really close.
Y'all were tight. Yeah.
Really close. And Maurice as well. But yeah, it was just a lot of fun. A lot of church, of course. Woo. Dad was always, by the time I got here, Dad had been preaching. He had started preaching, I think the year before Maurice was born, which was 1977. So when I came along in 1981, he was full in.
Yeah, all
he
the
was
way
full in full time by the time I came along.
Wow.
So, but a lot of church. At the time, my father was assistant pastor for my uncle. Shout out Pastor Melvin Elvin. Shout out Holy Ghost City me back in the day. West Side. So, always in church. But it was fun though.
It was
fun. I mean, we had built-in playmates. We always had somebody to be with, hang around. You want to learn lonely. Now, because the only thing about me was in my neighborhood, there were no girls. It was only boys on my block.
Okay.
So I wasn't outside a lot. But I would say my brothers would make sure they spent time with me. Because my mom was like, you can't be in there running the streets with all them boys.
Yeah.
So I could only stay outside for a little while.
Yeah.
Till they wanted to play football, and I had to go sit on the porch or go back in the house. But they made sure they spent time or would play stuff that I could play.
That you could play.
Until it was okay, it was time to be boys, and I had to go find my tea set or something.
It made you go pull out your easy baker.
Make my daddy have tea parties with me. Okay.
So that's interesting. I guess I think about, and again, growing up in Pentecost, in a Pentecostal home, or with parents who ascribe to the Pentecostal lifestyle, I've often heard, and I only have limited perspective because I'm a guy. I've often heard that Pentecostal homes are harder on the girls than they are on the guys.
I can't dispute that because I know everyone's experience is their experience.
Yeah.
And I've heard, and I know people super strict.
Yeah.
With me, I guess, because I will say this when I say I didn't wear pants growing up. I didn't wear pants. I wore pants twice before I got to college. When I was in high school and I got on the softball team, I had to wear my uniform.
Yeah.
And once in high school for some kind of, I was in choir, and we had to do something and we had to wear pants, and my daddy let me wear pants. But other than that, I didn't officially start like wearing pants till I was getting ready to go to college, and he said, you can wear pants when you get to campus. And I was like, I was going to do that anyway, but thank you.
You weren't going to tell, but thanks. Appreciate you.
Appreciate the leave. I was going to do it. No, but so I guess in that sense, because I didn't wear pants.
Yeah.
So in that sense, it could be looked at, it was a strict upbringing.
Yeah.
So I won't dispute that.
Okay.
But I wasn't strict to the point. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Fine.
And I say that because it was all boys. With us. And so like, I think, you know, there were certain things my parents didn't necessarily worry about because I think boys as a generality handle things differently. So we weren't going around having attitudes with each other for 3 or 4 weeks if something happened in the house and we were mad. We just fought. And then the next day we got some chicken and it was over. We didn't have a lot of space for conflict. And so I remember when Bree was born and the first like girl temper tantrum meltdown she had when she was a teenager. I was like, I don't know what to do because I'm not.
In that sense, I've never been like that, and it may be because I had a lot of brothers.
You had a lot of brothers. Yeah.
So like we would get at it. Now Marcel would probably tell you if he count the times he got in trouble, it was probably because he was into it with me, and they just made him stop because I was probably the one that started it, most likely.
I don't believe
that. Listen, they are so generous with me because like I said, but I've always been a calm, mild-mannered person. So like temper tantrums and stuff like that, I wasn't doing that with them. I would.
You would wait enough.
I was gonna fight because probably so I had a lot of brothers. So if we was into it, I wasn't running and crying. We was gonna scrap, and they was gonna have to come get us.
Yeah,
because. Now they was
because you setting Marcel up to get killed because there's no way your parents are gonna let him.
No, I mean, listen, let me tell you this story. Marcel gonna get me. Listen, no, for real, because like I said, we were about a year apart. So if anybody, Maurice didn't. They weren't like beating on me in the house, but we get into it. We scuffle, So,
nudge each other, shove each other in the hallway.
Right, Marcel could he would get me in check real good. He think he still can to this day. However, so we got
older brothers.
We got
like
into it.
A daddy and 4 extra ones.
Right. So we got into it in the house one day, and I was like, I was tired of you, Sal, so I swung on him. My mom had to come save me, but I swung on him. But like I said, I think because I had so many brothers, I wasn't that typical. Have an attitude, throw a tantrum, because who would you go throw it with? Because they weren't about throwing tantrums.
They weren't about throwing it. Yeah.
If I was about to throw one, they was just like, "Girl, what's wrong? Like, why you calm down? Like let's talk about."
We ain't got no space for that. Like, what you? I was doing the same. I learned how Bree was just crying and trying to explain to me what happened. I was like, what happened?
So I learned how to talk it out. And honestly, my mom wasn't. She was cool, calm,
I was about to say, Mother Fears is so mild-mannered.
Hey, Mama, she is. No.
People say the same thing about Mama. I say, at the church.
When they be like, we just love your mom, I'd be like, child.
I'd be like, at the house is another story.
No, but and too, so she is extremely intelligent, very opinionated. She knows her own mind, and she's articulate. So she was more so about talk about what's wrong instead of you falling out crying about it because don't nobody know what the problem is. And you just be laying here screaming. And in her being in education, early childhood education, she was about that and talk through what's going on with you. So she was more so what's going on with you more so than, or even herself, like her and my parents, of course. When they would, have to have their husband and wife discussions, she wasn't screaming and hollering the ones we happened to be around for. No, she would say, "No, this is,
very matter of fact."
Right. So I didn't hear a lot of screaming and hollering and throwing stuff and having a fit. So I didn't pick that up as a way to work through what was happening.
That's cool.
So I was super fortunate in that.
Wow.
And because then, like I said, I didn't have sisters. So when I actually seen dynamics with sisters, I used to be like, what are y'all doing?
I remember I used to always laugh when back when me and Stephanie were dating, because she had her two sisters, and I would go over there and I would be like, I don't have no. Wait a minute, y'all had this discussion a week ago, and y'all still talking? Like, we'd have fought and been at Joe's Hot Dogs by now. It would not have been a problem.
So, right. So, like I said, with my friends, and I say, I think Melissa and Ebony Parker were the first, like, super up close sister dynamic I seen. I used to be looking at them when we was coming up like, what are y'all doing?
Yeah.
I'm like, what you mad about? She wore your sweater.
And then my dad would walk through, like I always say, in my parents' house, we weren't allowed to have attitudes. My dad would say, "Oh, you mad?" That was his every. "Oh, you mad?" And we'd be like, "Now, I don't know how to answer this question. You setting me up, because the reality is I am mad, but I clearly can't say that because you're questioning if I'm mad. But if I don't say I'm mad, then I'm lying. Right. So what am I supposed to do?"
So I will say, it was like, if you got upset, it was space. Now that I think about it, to go get yourself together. Like, okay, it's over now. Don't stay mad all day. Don't come down to dinner if y'all argued after school and you still mad at dinner. Go somewhere with all of that. Now, because my daddy, for sure, he ain't want that at his dinner table. Don't come down here with no mess.
That was my dad's thing. Like, I work all day long. When I come home, I want peace in my house.
Right. My mom was the same way. She coming through the door. She about to cook dinner for us and everything. Now, y'all sit down and eat it. She ain't want no mess at her table.
They want peace.
They wanted peace. So we gave her peace for the most part.
Look,
like I said, we
didn't have much choice, but we was gonna give them peace, or we was gonna get toe up in pieces.
Get up from the table.
Right.
Get up. You disturbing the peace. Go sit down.
Because you are the call.
You clearly.
So your dad started pastoring Redeem
in 1992.
So that would have made you about 11 or 12.
I was so generous. I was getting ready to be 11. I was 10. And I was about getting ready to have my 11th birthday in a couple months. He started in February. My birthday was in October.
So you all, again, for those who aren't watching that, are geographically challenged when it comes to the south suburbs of Chicago. So Evangelist Taryn did not grow up in the city of Joliet like we did.
I didn't.
Her father came to Joliet to pastor a church. Mm-hmm. And that kind of brought the Fears family into Joliet.
Yes.
So I'm going to ask this question, because I ain't never asked nobody this question before. Because everybody I know grew up here. What was the difference? What y'all were in? What, Chicago?
We were originally in Chicago, south side of Chicago, and then we moved to the south suburbs at some point. So south Chicago, south suburbs, and we spent a lot of time on the west side as well. So that was like where we.
So Joliet is different than the south side, the south suburbs, and the west side.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
It's a small town.
Talk about that, coming here to a small city where everybody knows everybody and don't nobody know y'all.
I mean, that was the case.
That was the case.
Like my father had been. Nobody outside of Redeem, I think, because he had been traveling to Redeem over years. Already ministering for them. So that's how he was even kind of, it was God's doing, but even on their radar, so to speak.
Yeah.
Because he had already been kind of running revivals for them and stuff. And I knew maybe one or two grown-ups that went to that church. Not any of anybody else.
Yeah.
So it was a new experience. Because when they told us, like, okay, he goes start pastoring, we was like,
I was about to say, what was that like?
And then, like I said, we were going to my uncle's church at the time. So we were like, so we not going back to, like, never again. We done.
We done, yeah.
And they were like, well, yeah, Dad's going to be the pastor at Redeem. We like, so we ain't never going back to. So I think once they clicked, like.
That was the same thing when we had to leave prayer tower. I was distraught.
I was like, what y'all mean?
I said,
what y'all mean? We ain't going back?
Go to church. Like, is the church going away?
We gonna go to Redeem now. I'm like, so we ain't never going back though?
Yeah.
I think I'm about to ask her, and my mama got time. She's like, girl, no.
We ain't going. It's a new day.
It's new, it's over. So it's so funny because when we started coming, I would sit by my mom. I sat by my mom for an entire year in church. But it's not the reason you think. The last 4 years of being in my uncle's church, I was in trouble. I had got in trouble in church with my mom.
I cannot. This is not the Taryn I know.
She said I had to sit next to her in church.
Did she have a little rat tail comb she used to pull out?
She didn't need no comb. After that day,
you had to sit on the sanctified pew because
she said, I can't trust you not to clown back there with your brothers. So by the time we switched churches, I was still in trouble.
So the trouble followed you to the new building.
So everybody thought I was shy. No, I was in trouble.
That is hilarious.
So I sat by her for a whole year because she was like, you ain't gonna get here and start clowning. So because I ran my mouth, I would just talk, play.
What church kid didn't? Like, there was nothing to do in church until you got saved but play.
You want to know what I did?
We played while the saints was praising.
And
that's what we did.
That's how I got in trouble.
Yeah.
I'm playing with Marcel. My uncles are preaching. And I yelled out in church, Bigfoot, to the top of my lungs in the middle of service. And everybody...
What y'all talking about? That Bigfoot was even appropriate.
He said, do you want to play a game? I said, yeah. He said, let's see who can say Bigfoot.
I'm trying to see you and myself having this conversation in church.
He said, let's see who can say Bigfoot the loudest. I'm like, okay. So he was like, Bigfoot. I was like, Bigfoot. Then he did this. But he didn't say nothing.
And you gonna yell out loud.
To the top of my lungs.
That's a classic story.
My mama was like, Bigfoot. Like you said.
What context is that? How is that even appropriate in church? You could have said Jesus. You could have said Mary or Judas. You gonna yell Bigfoot.
I might have been 7 and 8. I was in trouble till I was 11 years old.
That's hilarious.
She said, I don't care where we go. You sit right here.
So what was it like outside of having to sit next to Mother Fears every Sunday?
Other than that, it was just like
what was it nervous? Like how did you integrate yourself into the culture there? Like
it
being
was more
different.
So I would say it was a lot of kids there our age.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just like this is where we are now. And it was a conversation of Dad's taking over and we have to help. So do what you can to make that an easy transition.
Yeah.
So and then, but I said Maurice was helpful because Maurice is so outgoing.
Maurice is outgoing.
Maurice,
he don't meet strangers.
He doesn't. We was there a week and he knew everybody's name. I mean, it wasn't like it was a whole bunch of us.
Right.
But still,
it was enough that if you knew everybody's name in a week, that was impressive.
He had ingratiated himself already. He was everybody's best friend, everybody's son and nephew.
That's kind of how Wendell is.
Right. So that was helpful, you know. And so then everybody assumed, like you did, I was just quiet.
We didn't know.
Well, one day, Candy Ghostin, she came and asked Mom. She asked me after service. She said, "Why are you always sitting next to your mother?" And I was like, "Oh well, you know."
Because she yelled out bootleg in the middle of service during the sermon. Or was it Bigfoot?
It was Bigfoot.
Where I get bootleg from?
I don't know because it was.
She yelled out Bigfoot, and so she was on punishment for 3 years.
I was. So she came and asked my mom. She said, "Is it okay if Taryn sitting next to me in church now?" And my mom said, "Yeah." So she started letting me sit next to Candy in church. And that was my first friend I made at Redeem. Wow. But Candy is a Parker. Yeah. So if you meet one Parker baby,
you meet all of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
So next thing I know, I'm best friend. I'm at Granny house. I'm everywhere. Now I know what the heel is. I know. I'm everywhere.
I'm so mad at you for that.
I know what the heel is. I'm everywhere. Okay.
All right. For everybody outside of Joliet. So there are a few different sides to the city. There's the east side. Mm-hmm. The east side is probably the predominantly minority side of town. Yes. That's where the bulk of the African Americans and the Latino community lives on the east side.
Yeah.
We grew up on the east side. Our house was on the east side. Mm-hmm. My father's church was on the east side. Taryn's father's church. The old Redeem. It's actually the old Redeem is like halfway between African Americanville,
it is,
and Latinoville.
Right, yeah.
It's like the meeting point where those churches. Absolutely. It's like the meeting point where those communities meet. Mm-hmm. So the Hill, another part across town, close to the east side, also predominantly African American, but for some. And I don't want to disrespect anybody who lived on the hill, because my godmother lived on the hill and my god sisters lived on the hill, and it's great people who lived on the hill. I love people, and I used to love going on the hill.
Yes,
but I said all that to say, when I would go over my godmother's house on the hill, whenever the sun went down, Mama would This is when they had house phones. You still up there on the hill? All right, make your way back over to this side.
So, so
she had a phobia about the hill.
Yeah, at that time it was like, because I
But
was asking, like,
back
what
then,
is,
yeah.
I'm from Chicago, so when I got up there, I was like, are y'all serious? This what y'all talking about?
Oh yeah,
But
yeah.
I learned.
You got the context of Joliet. The hill is a big deal.
I respected it because at first I was like, quit playing, but I respected it after a while.
So,
but it was, like I said, Maurice was helpful. You know, in the end.
Yeah.
And then once I made that first friend,
it was
It just went like that.
So we didn't at our church. Your dad came to pastor in 92.
Mm-hmm.
I was over the youth choir at my dad's church in 92, and we had heard about this new pastor that was in town. Now, you have to understand, I have a connection to Redeemed too, the church her father pastored. So the church I was born in, Prayer Tower, was pastored by the late Elder Robert Doris. Mm-hmm. The founder of Redeem, which is her father's church, is the brother of the pastor that founded Prayer Tower.
Yeah, the late L.C. Doris.
Leicester Doris was the one who founded Redeem. And so those churches always had a close relationship. Well, we found out, but we always knew Redeem to be the church in the beauty shop. By the beauty shops in the little plaza.
Right. Yes, it was.
Because when we all first came, that's
what it was. It was a barbershop.
It was it was in the middle of, like, it may have been a barbershop and a beauty shop or a cell phone store on one side.
Like that.
And then the church was in the plaza in the middle. Mm-hmm. So it really was a small church. And then they moved to Clay Street and the church started growing phenomenally. And so we were hearing, like, what's going Redeem? Because at first everybody was like, the church in the beauty shop? But they weren't in the beauty shop anymore. So I went down there, and I want to say maybe I was about 17 or 18, and I snuck over there for a Sunday night service. Wow. And I was like, good God Almighty, what is this? And so I reached out, I had our youth director, Mother Carrie Perry. Okay. She reached out to somebody over at Redeem. I don't know if it was Mother Jordan or somebody. Probably. And we got this youth revival going.
Listen, these youth revivals.
Let me tell you how bananas them youth revivals used to be. Legendary. We did that for like 5 or 6 years straight. And this was not like, now we have a day of revival, a morning and a night. We had a whole week.
Had a whole week.
And her father would come and preach, and the choir would come and sing, and we would roll in the flow. You didn't know what kind of church you walked into.
But let me tell you.
You didn't know if it was Baptist, Kojic, or what.
That was the thing. Because he was like, okay, when he told us, I preached for a church down here with St. Paul Missionary Baptist Church. And he preached for a lot of different churches. Yeah. But St. Paul was different.
They were
not church. Whatever you thought your typical Missionary Baptist church was, St. Paul was not. They were not it. And so we got over there like, oh, they preaching in here. I think we
had one of the largest youth choirs. And our church wasn't that big. We had like maybe a 200 or 250 member church, and we had 50 young adults in the choir.
They was churching down Patterson Road, okay?
Underneath the viaduct, around the corner from the viaduct and the railroad tracks.
And that was like one of our first, I think, experiences. Yeah. We want to say like interdenominational fellowship.
Yeah. It was
great.
Groundbreaking.
It was.
Like everybody, by the second year we did it, you couldn't get in that church. Like by the time it started, like we were inviting other youth choirs from the city, and then they were bringing their churches, and then Redeem's whole church would be there, our whole church would be there, and whoever we invited, their whole church would. 30 minutes after church started, you were standing up.
Yep.
Because we would have, and Elder Fears would get up and just wreck us. I mean, every night for years. Yeah. That church would be, when Elder Fears would leave the Sunday after the youth revival, it was always chaos. Because we were always still on that high. And so Daddy be trying to get everybody settled, and all the young people done got real full all over.
A lot of us got saved.
We real charged.
Rolled around and spoke in tongues and...
At the youth, we was one of the only Baptist churches in the city that had sheets, because the people was going down like flies at that revival. And we had, you got to realize my mama was the first lady, and she's Kojic born and bred. So we had sheets for days. We had
they was
such
throwing them
good
too.
church.
We had a great fellowship.
But that was the kind of the building block, I think, for a lot of ministry that the city is seeing now was birthed back then when we were brave enough to cross out of our districts and our jurisdictions and our denominations and say, y'all got it, we got it, let's hook up and get it together.
Yeah.
And I think that's really, the youth revivals, if I really am honest about it, were probably the times where I think my focus and what God had called me to do started to become really clear. In those, like that 17, 18, 19, I was getting ready to go to college. And, college, you had to make a lot of decisions.
You did. I found that out. A whole lot.
Like, you don't have mama and daddy in the house. Like, when you grow up in a controlled environment, certain decisions you don't have to make. Because certain stuff you're not exposed to.
Yeah.
You don't know about what you mean. Am I going to drink or not? Or am I going to smoke a cigarette or not? Like, the strongest thing my mama drink is Sunsweet prune juice. What are we doing? But when you are away from them and you got to put into practice what they taught you.
Yes.
I think for me, I will always think about those revivals and how we just used to get deposits for God to really keep us in these environments. So when I got to school, like, even though I wanted to like do what the typical college kids do when they leave home, I knew I couldn't.
Yeah.
I knew I could only do so much. And then my crazy stuff, I happened to make a group of friends my freshman year, and these folk were saved. Like my friend Franklin and my friend Jessica, these folks were saved. And so I was like, I would get to college where I got all this devilment planned in my mind.
See, the Lord was
and I go to the gospel choir rehearsal off a whim, and everybody I meet at the gospel choir rehearsal is saved. So that's, I guess I got to be saved.
He was protecting. Now, see, you was on your way to college. Your youth revivals, I was a little younger. So I was still just, hey, I'm here. We here. In this
but
church.
Y'all would come in and sing.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, y'all used to come in and sing.
Listen, we love singing. We love singing. Y'all love singing. And it was music at that time in Joliet, I will say. That era, it was just so much.
We had
choirs and musicians.
Even for us to be a small city. Like we had, I was thinking about that at Mama Humphrey's funeral last night, when I was just looking around all the people that came together to make up the choir. And I was like, these are people I went to high school with, like all homegrown. You could take Joliet and practically go into almost any church, whether it was Shiloh, Mount Zion, St. Paul, Redeemed, Prayer Tower, anywhere. Everybody had a church choir that could sing.
Yeah, we had some good choirs.
We had some good choirs. So let's talk about you and your pilgrimage, your journey.
Pilgrimage is funny.
I know, right? I often think sometimes that PKs have the hardest time coming to faith because we have a lot of obstacles. Like we have the expectations of our parents, we have the expectations of the saints, we have the attack of the enemy who knows that we are the closest things to our parents, so they want to get us distracted so they can get them off. Like, what was that experience like for you? Like, we were never short on church.
Never short on church.
But when did all of the church and all of the teachings start to take root in you?
I'll say this, and I always validate everybody's experience because I know although we can be raised in a similar environment, raised in the exact same environment, and come out with completely different experiences and perspectives. And for me, being raised as a preacher's kid, a pastor's kid, church was actually my safe space.
Wow.
So
yeah, I get that.
For me, because like my brothers could go to school and blend in. You know,
but you had a skirt on.
I had a skirt on. Okay, ankle length skirt with some K-Swiss. Okay, so.
Not the K-Swiss.
Who you had?
I used to call them that outfit my mama's YPWW outfit.
Adam.
Because she would put them. We worked together. Me and my mother worked together when I was in college. I came home for the summer, and they had a program at her job where if the full-time employees had a kid in college, they would hire the children.
Oh wow!
And so I actually went and worked with my mom.
Let me tell you something.
And to watch her scurry around that production floor in that blue jean skirt and them K-Swisses with them bobby socks over them stockings, I used to scream laughing.
Listen, but I
said, "Mama's so safe."
I couldn't wear pants, So I'm like, and we in Chicago. I'm walking to school to the bus stop,
and it's 9 below outside.
And I got a skirt.
And she got a skirt.
So who you hiding from? Okay. So everybody knew something was up.
They knew you was
I
saved.
was something.
You was something.
So it's all that.
You ain't like us.
Right. What kind of church you go to, child? Leave me alone.
Right.
Okay.
I'm cold.
What church you go to? Why you can't wear pants?
God.
Do you want me to bring you some pants? No, because my brother's gonna tell.
Yeah.
I'm fine with.
My mother used to do leg warmers.
Leave me alone.
She used to wear leg warmers under her skirt.
Right. So, but at church, I didn't stand out in the skirt.
Everybody had a skirt on.
Everybody got on the skirt.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense.
So after I got through dealing with all y'all kids at school, I was ready to come to church.
She was ready to come to church and wear her skirt.
around
other people who had skirts.
on. And I ain't got to fight nobody because
Right, because they making fun of you. Because everybody got a skirt on.
Because everybody got a skirt on.
Yeah.
Okay? So church, in that sense, became my safe space.
Yeah.
So I was like, hey, let's go. Where we going?
Mm-hmm.
Especially at Redeemed, because again, it was so many kids our age.
Yeah.
So to get there, so it was like, okay, I can relax. I don't have to be defending myself. I don't have to be defensive. I don't have to snatch up somebody's daughter because they messing with me.
Praise the Lord.
And I want y'all to leave me alone, so I got to make an example out of you.
Yeah.
We
thank God, don't we?
We thank God.
We thank God.
Thank the Lord. So my experience, and that was a little different. So, and also I will say too, and I will go back to my mom. She told me early on, she was like, I didn't have to, be like an example. Not to say like I could do whatever I want to do.
Yeah.
But she was like, it wasn't on me.
That's
to
good.
Raise other people's kids.
That's good.
When you were a kid yourself.
You don't have to be the example. You don't have to be the measuring stick.
She was like, "Nah, you go act right.
Yeah,
you go respect people.
Yeah,
but no,
you're a child just like everybody else.
Yes, she was like, you're a child too. So she was like,
wow.
So
that's good. Shout out to Mother Fears.
For real, she literally had that conversation.
Yeah,
with me. I don't know if she had it with my brothers. I don't know, but she told me that. And then I remember once I was maybe 13 or 14, and we in Bible class, we be clowning, and the teacher said, "You ought to know better. You the pastor's kid." And I was like, they're the same age I am.
Yeah.
Why I gotta know better? They parents upstairs too, But she didn't let me take that on.
Yes.
She was like, "Oh, you go act right, but you're not responsible for what anyone else does."
Yes.
And she told me that, and I was like, "Okay." So I didn't feel that pressure in that sense. But of course, you still know. Okay, you still know.
Yeah.
You're the pastor's child.
You different.
So in that respect,
even if you're not where you feel like you need to be. Yeah. One thing you do know as pastors' kids, I think, is that eyes are on you all the time.
Yes, you knew that. Yes. So everybody's looking.
Yes,
and even if mom says you're not responsible for anybody else's actions, you know, kind of in yourself, okay, you don't want to embarrass them.
Yeah,
like you said. You don't want to embarrass them. You don't want to do anything that would bring shame or scandal to their door.
Right.
You want to make sure you keep their name clean.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Like that. So of course that existed in the back of my mind going through, but I never felt like overly pressured to the point where I felt like I needed to escape.
That's great.
So I thank God for that.
Yeah.
Because what I learned when my ministry started to unfold, I learned who I was there for. Like I learned that I was there for the ones that never left.
Wow.
You know, because there's the prodigal son, and there's just the one boy that stayed home.
Yes.
But even though he stayed home, he didn't have it easy either.
Yeah.
And because you could tell us when his brother came back, he was mad that he was getting a party.
That he was getting because he felt like ain't nobody threw me no party, and I've been here doing what I'm supposed to do the whole time.
Right. So he felt some type of way.
Yeah.
And so there are those of us that we never physically left the church. Mm-hmm. We kept coming. We kept being involved in ministry, but that doesn't mean we were always saved. That doesn't mean our lives at home were always on point.
On point, absolutely.
We were a mess, but we was in that choir on Sunday morning. And so that in and of itself was something to deal with.
Yeah.
And be like, oh man, I was clowning last night.
Yeah, that ain't even God.
Oh my God.
That ain't even God.
I need to get myself together. So it was like that self thing, like,
yeah,
I'm still coming to church, and
it hits you.
Yeah, it hits you. And trying not to feel like a hypocrite because you really do love the Lord.
Yeah, yeah.
And then, so I knew I was there for those that, like, I always say, like, I call them the ones that never left.
Yeah.
We kept coming, but that doesn't mean things were perfect.
We didn't have challenges. Like, I think, for some of us who never left,
Yes.
it was always like, if I left, what I'm gonna do?
In the sense.
Like, I don't have nowhere else to run. I don't have no options. Like, as much as I would like to say that, if I wasn't saved, I could blend into the world. Let me tell you, I'm gonna tell you this. Mama, close your ears. Daddy, close your ears. I don't want y'all to hear this. I was in college. It's my freshman year of college. And, I got invited to a frat party. Mm-hmm. I went to the University of Illinois, Chicago. We were right down the street from the Maxwell Street Market. Back in the day, they called it. No, I'm not going to say that because I think that you're supposed to say that. Yeah.
What it is.
But there were all these little vendors, and you could go and get practically any outfit you wanted. Mm-hmm. And so there was a party going on. The Alphas, either the Alphas or the Sigmas, were having a party at ITT on 35th and State. Yeah. I went to the hood to party. Ain't that so? Right down the street from Robert's Temple. That's how I knew how to get there.
That's how you got to get there. Oh, I know where 40th and State is. How?
The Temple is. I ain't gonna tell you how I know, but I've been there. And we went to, I still remember what I had on. I bought these cross-color jeans.
Cross-color.
And I had a Duke hoodie with some baby blue, black, and white Jordans.
Oh, you was fine.
I went
you
and
always dressed
I went and bought all this stuff. And I went to the party, and I don't know if you've experienced this as a church kid, but like when you really are kind of wrestling with this, I know this is who God is calling me to be. Sometimes you feel like you got to go extra hard to divorce yourself from that identity. So I went to the party at ITT, and I danced until I sweated. I think I danced out my shirt. And this girl came to me and she said, "You dance just like a church boy."
Ooh.
When I tell you my feelings were hurt.
All that hard work.
All that hard work.
And what did it get you?
And what did it get me? She cracked my face so bad. She said, "You dance just like a church boy."
Oh no.
And I was like, Jesus, that's so unfair.
Well, I can't dance at all.
I said, that's so unfair.
I ain't got rhythm the first. It's so sad. I can't rock, clap, and sing at the same time.
Well, see, that's the thing. So I can do it all. And I felt like all this good rhythm was going to waste. But thank you, Lord. I'm just glad at the end of the day, almost 30 years later, I'm glad now that I made it out of that party. Because the reality is I had no business on 35th and State at a party at 1:30 in the morning. I could have been shot.
Yeah.
So, that's why I got saved. I got saved because salvation is where I belong.
It's where I belong. So, like, I went to college, went to Illinois State. So, I left home as far as I could be. It was about 2 hours. It was far enough away.
Far enough where they can't get to you unless they call.
Exactly. I knew my day were about to drive 2 hours.
Unless he's checking to make sure you want.
So, I was at Illinois State, and I went with some friends from high school.
Okay.
And they had church experiences. Somebody actually grew up in church with me, but nobody was saying they were saved.
Right.
And I wasn't even saying that at that point. Right. But I went and
you got to wear your pants too.
I got to wear my pants.
She had her pants, so she wasn't easily identifiable anymore.
My friends, when I walked up on them in the dorm, they didn't know who I was because I had pants. So they was like, "Taryn." I said, "Yeah, shut up." But anyway. We was in school together, and I went to the parties. I went to the frat parties. I went to they call them townie parties down there in Normal at the Elks.
Ooh,
I went to the parties.
I did.
I did. I ain't even gonna lie to you and tell you I didn't because I did.
You got to. Every church kid went.
I went partying. Like you said, you only do so much. Now I never was wanted to drink it anyway, so I didn't do a lot of it. Mm-hmm. I didn't go off on that.
You knew your limits.
I knew my limits.
You knew what.
Because I thought to myself, I've never really drank. Should I start drinking now? I don't know.
And what kind of drunk you don't know how my body gonna respond. Right. And the last thing I gotta do is call home drunk and tell Daddy,
Daddy,
can you come get me?
Where I am. No.
Why you sound like that?
Huh?
Hold on. And when I come, I'm gonna have a belt and some Blessed oil. How about that? We gonna fix it all tonight.
I left it alone. That's not experiments.
That ain't what God. That's not what God's will for your life.
Though. So, like those, so you because you want to, like, okay, I've never experienced that. You want
never experienced, and it's a curiosity behind it. Yeah.
There really is.
Yeah.
So for some of us, we go a little further than others.
Yeah.
But I think that all melts into who, in the end, what kind of ministry we have, the type of people we're supposed to talk to, the type of people we're supposed to touch. So maybe I'm not the one that's talked to the one that ended up, so deep in the world and like that. No, I'm talking to the one that you keep coming to church.
Because you know that ain't it.
Because you know that ain't it.
Yeah.
But you ain't exactly 10
ready for this shit. I'm going to be your bridge. I'm going to be your bridge.
Yeah.
Help you get from here to there.
Yes. Yeah. So when I realized that, I became more comfortable with
that's
me
good.
And not having had all those types of experiences, So I came, because I used to feel like, I had to act like I had done so much or act like I had done so many different things and I really hadn't.
Yeah.
And people be like, so I used to get offended when people say, oh, you just a good girl. You ain't did nothing. I just be like, you don't know me. But
I'd be like, thank God. Because some people got a hold of stuff they never came back from.
Right. And not to say I've never made any mistakes or never done anything that we would say outside of the will of God or, not lawful, not expedient.
Amen. Praise the Lord.
I've done a lot of unexpedient things.
As we have.
As we all have.
Yeah,
as growing up, just, but I thank God that I realized, okay, you who you are and who you're supposed to be for. And then I always look at that because it would be like, I say the ones that stayed, maybe they don't always get the pat on the back.
Yeah.
Or they don't always get the encouragement because you were expected.
And sometimes you get taken advantage of.
And you get taken advantage of a little bit.
Or taken for granted.
Or taken for granted because you're always there.
Because you're there.
And then when the one that ain't been here in 3 years show up, they want to shout and buzz backflips.
Yeah.
And you like, yo, oh, we just so glad.
Who you think was coming? Who you think was coming their place when they was gone?
We so glad so-and-so was here. I've been sitting up here every Sunday. Y'all ain't said a word.
Like
or get on me the most.
I want to thank me.
Right. Right.
Y'all don't have to thank me. Right. I want to thank me.
Or stay on my case.
Yes.
And I've been here every Sunday.
Sunday.
That can cause you to disconnect.
Yeah.
People be like, that's why I don't go to church now because this and this, because when they were coming, they maybe didn't feel their love or even feel like they were appreciated.
Or their presence was valued.
In being there.
Yes.
So when I realized that, I was like, okay, it's two things, especially when I got into youth ministry, it's the ones that aren't in church that we need to minister to and bring into the fold and disciple and love on and show the way of Christ. And it's the ones that's been sitting up in here the whole time. And so disconnected.
Yes.
It don't make no sense.
Yes.
Like they so far, like they say, as far as the east is from the west. They just in here. We just in here. And don't know where we just wandering around the desert for 40 years.
God
just
help
wondering.
Us. God help us.
But that was a ministry too, to say, hey, okay, if we here, let's be here.
Let's plug in.
Yeah. And not just in doing and in ministry, but let's plug our hearts in. Let's really get connected to God.
Yeah.
Let's really let's say build up ourselves on your most holy faith.
Yeah.
Let's really dig in and get all that junk and mess out of us.
Yeah.
And for real live holy.
And deal with it. Because a lot of that stuff is real stuff.
Yeah.
Like I even think, and I think I was talking to your brother about this, about the call to ministry for me. And I think my father being a pastor probably was more of a hindrance to me accepting my call than a help. Not because he wasn't an amazing pastor and wasn't integral in the way he did life. I just saw what he had to deal with. All the stuff he had to take. And I'm like, no, God, we can do. I felt like Jesus when he was praying in the Garden of Gethsemane. I said, Father, if it be your will,
let it pass.
If you can let this cup pass,
we can do this.
We can do something. Way. I can bake a cake. I can sweep the bathrooms. I ain't above sweeping the bathrooms.
I do anything.
I mop floors. I wipe the baseboards. I do not want to preach. And actually, ACG got started because I didn't want to preach.
Now, okay, let me tell you about the era of ACG and Joliet.
I didn't want to preach.
Let me tell you what I always loved about. First of all, one of the most amazing choirs to this day. I'll put ACG up against
ACG.
But what I loved about ACG is that it never gave this is my church and Rodney is our pastor. It never gave that.
It was never that.
It was never that.
And I never wanted it to be that.
And I love that so much because then when you would go around, you would see everybody in ministry in their own church and then come to the ACG concert.
And then we all singing together.
But I love that it didn't become like, right, this is Rodney's church.
I never wanted
it. Never
because I was too busy trying to figure out what God wanted me to do before I wanted to lead.
Then it became more like a way for young people, even coming into, because I wasn't in the choir, but even coming to the concerts, it was like ACG having a concert. We know we can go here and have a good time.
And it's going to be a safe environment. Yes.
Because you weren't up there trying to indoctrinate nobody or trying to put your
we were just kids who just loved to sing together.
Yeah.
That's all. And we had a rule in our choir was that you couldn't sing with us if you weren't participating in your church choir.
It was in order. And so
it was in order.
It felt like a safe space.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you this, because ACG used to rehearse at Redeem.
We did.
You were the only individual, only person that ever used that church for anything.
And it was never a problem. The door was always
he
open
wasn't
to
gonna
us.
let everybody coming in. No,
because that's your church.
You were the only person.
Wow, that's an honor.
Yeah, the only person.
Wow,
that ever in that era when there was so many other choirs and so many other stuff going on.
Yeah,
Redeem and ACG. That was it.
It was a match made in heaven.
It was it. But I love that. But that that era. So it's like ministry because you didn't want to preach. For me, I didn't run from it, but I just wasn't expecting it. I wasn't thinking about it.
Wow.
It was the furthest thing from my mind.
Yeah. And almost all your brothers preaching, your dad preaching. Yeah. So like you being the only girl, you wouldn't think about it. You were thinking about
that's
preaching.
Dad and his boy.
Yeah.
Have fun. I was not thinking about it. I was trying to, whatever I was trying to do, it wasn't that.
Yeah.
I was not thinking about it. So when I felt like the Lord had called me, I didn't say that to my dad for like almost 2 years. Because I was just like, for real? I just, and so
he never came to you.
No, he was. Oh no, he didn't play them. He wasn't calling nobody.
My dad was the same way.
He wasn't calling anybody.
And when I told him, he said I knew, but I was never gonna say nothing to you until you brought it to me.
So when I told him on the way home from some service we had been at, and he said, "Go back, pray again, make sure." And he didn't say nothing to me for another 1.5 years almost. And then one day he was like, okay. Then he let me get up and do something. Then he started, and then the Lord started doing it. Then when I started getting calls and stuff, and he said, okay, you'll get your license this year. Well, people had started calling me, thank to God, asking me to come and share. And then after about a year or so of doing that, he said, okay, you go get your license, so you have some credentials.
Yeah. So, you got to be valid in this here church, operating in these streets.
Yeah.
Unauthorized.
I did.
Like some of these apostles.
I did.
I'm looking at the camera. I'm not looking at nobody in particular. But if it applies to you, I'm looking at you.
So I got my blue and gold card. If y'all know,
I got mine too.
You got your blue and gold card.
And my cord. And my assessment. Let's talk about the assessment.
The assessments. That's how I got the blue and gold card, because of the assessment. Praise Jesus.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah. All right. I'm going to pull this trade into the station. What would you say? You're talking to a young lady, a 20, 21-year-old lady, and they say, Taryn, I feel like the Lord has called me into ministry. Like, how would you advise them being a woman in ministry? Like, what kind of tips would you give them?
Well, and not to say that I have learned everything, because I still don't know.
We still learning.
We still learning and growing. Learning. Okay, and I thank God for, like, I said, my mom, my aunt, Barbara, Chris Ann Moore.
Yes, phenomenal.
Lavika, Belle Williams. Well, women look out like that. Even now, Evangelist Stephanie Rao, just women of the Lord, Ranisha, that just help you and pray for you along your journey.
Yeah, yeah.
But I would say, first of all, like my dad told me, go back and pray and make sure. Because the one thing you don't want to do is, for me, I didn't want to be nowhere and God didn't call me.
Right.
Listen, that's what I didn't want.
I can't even swim, so you ain't going to catch me at the pool.
Exactly. I don't want to be able to talk about God called me and God didn't call you to do a thing. Because all I can remember is Jesus I know and Paul I know, but who are you?
I always used to say, if I wasn't serious, I felt like I was going to be like Ananias and Sapphira and I was going to drop dead.
I ain't want none of that smoke.
None of that smoke.
So for me, I would say make sure. Right. And make sure, go to your leader, your pastor.
Yes.
Have them praying, over you. and don't move till they release you.
And
you know,
don't.
ain't nothing
That's
wrong.
good.
It ain't, people say you don't need, God called you. It ain't nothing wrong with having a leader and being obedient to your leader and allowing them to release you. Because I'll say Pastor Fears with myself, Elder Maurice, with Elder Marcel, before we started pastoring, with Evangelist Chris Ann, we are blessed to people to invite us. He has never told us no.
Yeah.
And never told us, you need to be. No.
But a lot of that is because I think he can trust your faithfulness, and you're still there.
Yeah, I've been my day to church. Yeah, I still go to my father's church.
30 some years, and it's still there.
Ministry.
I think you're probably one of the few PKs that I know that's
Reese is
still there.
Yeah,
outside of you and Reese.
And we serve, and I think that, and it's not because we couldn't have went. We was grown.
Yeah,
we could have went anywhere we wanted to.
Yeah,
but we've always felt like at this point it's to help and serve and redeem, and we've served in so many different capacities of leadership. So I would tell a young lady, pray. And then start studying it's like, know your word. Know your, like it's study, show yourself approved. Know your word. Don't try to be like anybody else.
Go to Bible college, please.
Don't try to
Because y'all be saying some crazy stuff that ain't in the Bible.
So know your word.
Men and women, go to Bible college.
Yeah. Don't try to be like anybody else.
Go to Bible college.
Be yourself in ministry. How the Lord brings it out of you, let it come out of you like that. And be comfortable with yourself like that. And then I would say that's the spiritual side. And of course, you're supposed to pray, stay fasted, and actually go to church and be active. But on the other side, I say this, guard your heart. I'm just going to tell you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Guard your heart. And I own all my decisions as far as like relationships and different things like that. I've made some, I ain't gonna say stupid and catastrophic, thankfully, but they've just been like, you
decisions that had you thought about them, you probably would have made a difference.
You would have made a difference.
Yeah,
you should know you should have went down that road, or not to get to the place where you want everything to line up so quickly that you ignore,
that you forego,
and you just grab. It's like, oh, this looks like it. Let's go with it.
It may not be,
and that ain't it.
It may not be.
And so just like. Guard your heart. I think like my mom told me that super early. Well, one night it was real weird. We was at a shut-in, and she got up and laid hands on me, and that's what she prayed for me at the time. I was like, why is she praying that? Shout out and found out why she prayed that. Guard your heart.
Yeah.
So I would say to a young lady, because I think, and it's not for all young ladies, but I think it's just people in general.
Yeah.
You want, some of us at some point in our life want to find that companionship and that love.
Yes.
So you looking for it. Some of us is really looking for it. Some of us ain't. But we at different points in that journey.
Different points, yeah.
But I would say if you're in ministry and that's also a desire of yours, that has to be a part. That has to be something that you lay on the altar to God.
Absolutely.
Like everything else.
You better,
everything else,
because your ministry could be at stake if you hook up with the wrong person.
And that's somebody I had to learn. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because it's like, you be something like, oh man, this is so good. And I'm like, I am really enjoying this. This feels right. This feels
good. Right. Yeah.
And then you notice that all your attention and all your energy and all your effort is being redirected there. And it's like, when the last time I didn't spend more time with you than I spent time with God.
We DMing, and I ain't prayed since last week.
And
we done went to the movies, the dinner. We done went skating. We got a full agenda.
Had a ball.
And Jesus like, you ain't gonna say
and
hey.
You ain't said a word.
Ain't said a word. Ain't gonna say hey.
Yeah.
So, how you doing?
And they be talking about balance. Nah, ain't no balance. God comes first. Yeah. That's the balance.
Yeah.
God comes first, and things get prioritized after that. So I would say to women, just because I'm a young woman. Guard your heart.
That's for men too.
Yeah, and it's okay. And I'll say this too. It's okay if you want to be, if you're not married and you want to be married. It's okay.
Yeah,
that is okay. Don't let people make you feel like you thirsty or you just typical. All you want. No,
you are human.
You're human.
You exist. Okay. We're not in the world. We're not of the world, but we are in the world.
So it is okay to desire to want that type of relationship. Yeah. That's perfectly okay. It's just like everything else. It can't become your number one thing. Yeah. It can't. So we have to make sure we stay focused and prioritize. And sometimes it do feel like you can't do nothing.
Yeah.
It's going to feel like I can't do nothing. Or sometimes you might say, boy, I wish I wasn't who I was.
Woo,
I done said that before.
I think we have all said that.
Like, okay,
never mind, Lord.
My bad, Jesus.
I love you, Jesus.
I love you. You didn't hear me. Scratch that.
I don't want you to take it away. I mean, can we just like dim it a little bit for a season? so I can just
Amazing.
turn the light down a little bit.
Can you give everybody?
You turn it back up about somewhere around July.
Can you give everybody else amnesia for about 6 months so I can go?
Oh gosh,
do my thing and come back?
Yes.
But no.
You know what? This has been absolutely amazing. We are gonna go on, but we ain't nearly out of conversation. But we are going to wrap this up. We're out of time. Evangelist Taryn Fears, thank you so much for coming and joining us here on the couch. So join us on our next episode of the Dear Preacher's Kid podcast. Until then, stay plugged in. We love you. Take care.